Ladies and gentlemen, and ladies, because today we're kicking off my podcast with a massive bombshell, and it's almost redefining, or in a sense, reprogramming the term blonde bombshell into a whole new meaning. And no, folks, I'm not talking about some Victoria's Secret fashion show or street fashion trend that's going viral on shorts, although that may be what gets the algorithm going. As my audience, according to YouTube Studio, is in fact almost 2/3 male, men outweighing women by roughly 27% and predominantly heavily weighted over the age of 55. And although this is probably what we'd all prefer to see, the consensus from the left is pushing a trend, shall I say, a trend far more explosive. But who am I kidding? Everything's going AI nowadays, so we might as well get used to seeing this moving forward. It's all getting pretty crazy. It's nuts. And speaking of crazy and nuts, here's a list of names, and in no particular order, topics of discussion for today's video. Another one of our calm and enjoyable chats and casual conversations, getting us all caught up to the latest breaking news and what all has been happening around the world, across the country, in our backyards, and populating feeds, as we all don't have as much time as we would honestly like to scroll the entire internet. And so here goes. Megyn Kelly, Afton Bain, Erica Kirk, Lily Gaddis, and someone I had to Google and look up because I had honestly never seen her before. But ever since last night, she's been popping up in my feed on TikTok and now on X. And she describes herself in her bio as a conservative wife, mommy, and Gma, and goes by the Real Cindy Alexis 2.0 with the handle at AM Patriot 2016. And so there's that. Oh, and Alina Habba and Candace Owens, and yeah, and I'm sure there are more and others out there, but those are just the main ones that stand out to me at the time. And yes, I know they're not all blonde, nor are they bombshells from a looks or even personality perspective, but they all equally in their own right qualify and have brutally shocking news stories attached to them. Some of these women carry more baggage than others. And so let's just kick this off with something that I thought I would have never seen. And I ain't talking about no New York Giants botched field goal either, because I don't think I have ever, nor anyone else for that matter, has seen something like that before. What a hot mess. And speaking of hot mess, but I know, y'all, this doesn't even come close remotely to blonde or bombshell, but I would be remiss if I didn't share the latest moment of absolute Democrat failure. Sheer stupidity, a flop, a dud, as I quote our president, a retard. But in the middle of Mark Kelly's long-winded, holier-than-thou diatribe where he acts like he's the real victim just trying to protect the country from its mean old president, he's forced to admit President Trump has not issued illegal orders.
Sort of flimsy legality that was being offered during the briefings. Were these sort of strikes that are now in the news what you were making reference to when you posted that video telling members of the military that they needed to feel okay just obeying orders that they felt were illegal?
Based on who this president is and who the Secretary of Defense is, and specifically things that the president has said in the past and things he was talking about doing in the future. Let me give you an example. 2016, he's talking about something on a debate stage that was clearly illegal. And he was reminded by Brett Baer from Fox News that that would be an illegal order. Military won't do that. You know what the president's response was to that? The military will not refuse my orders. Implying that even if they are illegal, they will not refuse them. He's also talked about shooting protesters in the legs. Then he's talking about deploying more troops to American cities and using those cities as training grounds. Do you know what that means? That means using the American people for the military to train on. So we were looking forward to try to head something off at the pass that could have been really, really bad. So it wasn't about this specific thing.
So there's really no other way to describe it. This guy, he's such a hot mess and just made himself look like a complete and total dumbass. What a fool, a buffoon. And so you see the lesson to be learned here, folks, is, well, don't be a fool like Mark Kelly. The great news is that I know you all are very smart and intelligent people. Hawk says, I'm in my 80s and Chapter saved us $1,100 a year. Richard, his comment reads, I called Chapter and I saved $1,200. Thanks, Kevin. Tom Swank, thank you for Chapter info. They helped me so much and got me an unreal better plan, saved me hundreds. And Ava, no need to apologize, with this comment here that says, sorry, Kevin, but credit from my Chapter experience went to your wife. Hers is the number I used. And look, that's just great. I want you all to get the greatest care possible and find potential money savings regardless. AEP is ending soon, and now is the time to call if you haven't already. 270-467-2426. Dial it, call them, and tell them Kevin sent you, or Michelle and ST Talks. But no matter what, make sure you call before the deadline. The clock is ticking, and call volume will increase as we close in on crunch time. Free Medicare help and advice, folks. Call the number on the screen. Learn more. Links below in the description as well.
I've said from the beginning, since Mom Donnie was on the scene, this is coming to a city near you. This is where the energy is. Whoever is in power in the White House typically has a hard time in that first midterm. AOC has figured out, okay, she's picking people. Matt Van Epps, you could not find a better candidate. He checks he's an amazing American, this patriotic guy. He's willing to serve, and yet it's this close. I do think that he will win.
I hope he does.
But the fact that it is close is a warning sign to Republicans everywhere that this Democratic energy from the far left is not going to stop. And it won't be Jessica necessarily, but you'll have Democrats, maybe Harold will say, she's not a real Democrat. No, like, this is actually where the party is going. She campaigned with AOC the weekend before the election. That tells me that they're not worried about her.
Yeah, that's
absolutely right. Based and a blonde, but I'm not sure if she falls into the category of bombshell. I'll let you tell me in the comments, as Dana Perino, co-host of Fox News' The Five, is definitely hot AF in this clip and drops a massive bombshell in regard to the left's scheme, plot, plans, and of all people, AOC leading the DSA Socialist Party to a close race between Afton Ben and Matt Van Epps.
I want all of you out there to listen to me carefully if you live in the 7th Congressional District of Tennessee. Go vote, go vote, go vote. AOC, Sean, would be a more moderate congresswoman than this crazy chick that they are trying to put into office in my home state, in my home city, in my home district. I cannot have this chick, crazy as she is, representing me, Sean. I need all of you to get out and vote Matt Van Epps. I am going early in the morning tomorrow. I am voting for Matt Van Epps. This woman wants to defund the police. She continues to refuse to even condemn that opinion. Even crazy people in the Democrat Party now try and pretend they didn't say this back in 2020. She hates country music and bachelorettes. The reason the city of Nashville is partly thriving to such an extent, and this community is thriving so much, is because so many young women feel comfortable coming here because Nashville is a safe community. We want to make it safer. We want more police. We want people who respect the people in uniform who are already here.
And therein lies the problem. The people who were already there, and now the people transplanting and bringing their woke liberal politics with them. Another podcaster, fellow YouTuber, and voice of conservative news, political commentary, and one who likes to bring the facts and perspectives from both sides before delivering the bottom line. Devori Darkins posted this on X and says, Democrat Tennessee congressional candidate Afton Bain blames political attack and her hatred for Tennessee on Republicans' messaging regarding health care. Make it make sense.
The barrage of negative attacks is a result of the fact that they don't have a plan to address the rising cost of healthcare. The negativity is ongoing, and the personal attacks are escalating because they don't have a plan. And we've said from the beginning, this is a campaign about addressing the affordability crisis in the state of Tennessee, and I have not seen any solutions or remedies from their side.
All right, Joe, you heard what she's saying there, and that worked quite well for Mamdani in New York City. She's saying they're not focused on the policies, they're not focused on affordability. What's your response to that?
Listen, she'd be better off running in a city like New York City or one of these other blue states. She's not going to represent Nashville well. I say that Tennessee is a Republican wall. We've been on the ground here for a while. We're doing everything we can to make sure we turn out the vote, and that's what it's going to come down to. We have to make sure the Republicans come out strong tomorrow. And what we saw already today from the rallies and from the walking that we've done is we have Speaker Johnson, Van Epps, we have both Republican U.S. Senators, Haggerty and Blackburn. We have all the members of Congress, and the energy and the excitement that we have on the ground is unmatched. That's why I think that we're going to be successful. We have a great candidate. She's just another far-left radical extremist from her left wing of the party. She should be running in New York City, not Nashville. We're going to close the gap, and we're going to make sure that we finish strong here, and we're going to elect Van Epps, because at the end of the day, we have to do everything we can to make sure we support the president and his policies.
All right.
Make it make sense. Yeah. You know what? You can't really, Devori. Unfortunately, the negative attacks, the negativity is actually coming from her. And the fact is that she's hated Nashville all along. And she said she wanted to defund the police, and she won't take those statements back either.
Crime is, of course, also was a major issue in the presidential election. And I know there are some old posts. You've been asked about those old posts a number of times. My question for you today is whether more money for cops on the streets in the district you hope to represent would help fight crime. Would you like more money for more cops on the streets in your district?
So those past comments were at a time when I was a private citizen, as an activist and organizer, and now as a Tennessee lawmaker, I represent 40,000 individual opinions and political thought.
Right,
and
so what do you think now? Would more money for cops be good or bad?
I think it depends on what the community wants. And so I've worked with communities, at least my constituents, want to ensure that there is investment in their community for community safety, community protection, mental health services. And that's what I'm hearing from at least my constituents.
All right, fair enough.
Well, I'm currently involved in a transformative justice seminar. And so it's how to imagine a world without police and what that looks like and what community mechanisms look like, how people can not police themselves, but what, for example, if you experience sexual assault, like what is the reconciliation process and what does transformative justice look like? Because as we know, like you can't take those things to court. Like, you know, our legal system is terrible when it comes to retribution. So anyways, all that to say is that like, I hope all of you, so one, I'll have a podcast on it, and I highly recommend, like, if it's been difficult for all of you to imagine a world without police, please tune in to maybe not this episode, but the next one, because I'll talk about, things I'm learning and growing as an organizer, because I think, especially for those of us, that are young, like, and talking to our parents about what police abolition looks like, that, we can do it, and there is a world.
Bain, is that right? Sitting there on CNN, trying to say the other party is attacking her is a diversion. Come on, give me a break, girl. They are only repeating her own words. And yes, she should be running somewhere like New York instead. Beware, folks, and begin to be able to spot them when you see them now. She, much like her idol, AOC, is a socialist, blaming Republicans for consequences of her own ridiculous statements. It's like a child blaming the dog for eating his or her homework that never existed. Afton is a childish person. And Tennesseans, folks, listen to me when I say this. Don't elect a child, okay? And Trump does have a plan. Remove all illegals from the country that are putting strains on all our resources and driving up costs across the board, driving up costs on housing, healthcare, food, taxes, everything. That plan is in full force and taking effect. Heck, even gas prices have started coming down.
This morning, some states seeing gas prices below $3 for the first time in years. Let's get to CNN's Matt Egan for the good news on this.
Yeah, absolutely. It's nice to finally be here with some good news on the cost of living front. So for the first time in 4.5 years, gas prices are averaging $3 a gallon nationally, according to AAA, down by 7 cents in just the past week. Gas prices were low a year ago as well, but they're even cheaper now. This is encouraging to see because late last month there was a period where gas prices were actually higher this year than last year, but that has reversed again, and now we've just fractions of a penny away from breaking below $3 a gallon. Now, as you mentioned, we've got 20 states across the country where the average is actually less than $2.75 a gallon, including North Carolina, South Carolina, Texas, Iowa, Wisconsin, and Colorado as well. Certainly nice to see this. Why is this happening? Well, it all comes down, of course, to oil prices, right? Oil prices are about $59 a barrel this morning. If you look back in history, on December 1, 3 years ago, we're looking at $81 a barrel for oil, $67 even last year. So significantly cheaper. And that's because right now, supply of oil continues to outpace demand. It's U.S. supply. Production in the U.S. is at all-time highs. It's higher than last year, but only a little bit higher. OPEC is the big story, though, right? Saudi-led OPEC, they are ramping up production substantially this year. They've signaled that they plan to pause those output hikes next year. But for now, look, this is a good story when it comes to the affordability crisis. Gasoline, it's relatively cheap.
All right. Well, good news for now, Matt Egan. Thank you very much.
Thank you, John.
For that. Sarah.
The gas is $1.82. And I just paid under $16 for the gas. Colorado. I'm literally shocked.
Man, CNN must hate having to report such great news thanks to President Trump. And is it just me? But do you ever notice how while President Trump's doing all he can to deliver on campaign promises like lower prices, safer streets, closed borders, increased take-home pay, lower taxes, all the left, all that the Democrats do is try and block, prevent, reverse, and cause harm to everyone else in the process, all just to spite one man. And now this, for which we couldn't have a conversation about bombshells and not include Trump's and New Jersey's attorney, Alina Habba, or at least former attorney. Now that Reuters reports a federal appeals court unanimously disqualified Alina Habba from overseeing cases as New Jersey's top federal prosecutor, finding her appointment under President Trump was unlawful.
Another federal court has rejected the Trump administration's move to install a U.S. attorney. An appeals court determined that President Donald Trump's former personal lawyer, Alina Habba, was unlawfully appointed as the top federal prosecutor in New Jersey. The three-judge panel's decision was unanimous, and Habba was disqualified from supervising cases. It was the latest blow to Trump and his Justice Department as they seek to install loyalists. Last week, a federal judge found that the Trump-aligned prosecutor Lindsay Halligan had been unlawfully appointed as interim U.S. attorney for the Eastern District of Virginia. That was part of a decision in which criminal cases brought against two high-profile Trump adversaries, former FBI Director James Comey and New York State Attorney General Letitia James, were dismissed. In the Alina Habba case, the appeals court upheld a lower court's ruling in August that the Trump administration violated a federal appointments law in naming Habba as acting U.S. attorney in New Jersey. The ruling is likely to impact scores of active federal criminal cases in New Jersey, forcing the Justice Department to find a new prosecutor to supervise those cases. A Justice Department spokesperson did not immediately respond to a request for comment.
Isn't it just funny how they all go radio silent when there's a request for comment and to hold these Democrats accountable? Just like we see here, and how after the bombshell post over the weekend by Minnesota DHS whistleblower employees who said Tim Walz was 100% responsible for the massive fraud in Minnesota and that he retaliated when they tried to expose it, but as a result, not one mainstream media headline or story about the post. The silence is deafening. However, in regard to Alina Habba, it is likely the Supreme Court will settle the issue, as the federal judges are just legislating from the bench, although, according to earlier reports, Bondi maneuvered to reinstate Alina Habba by firing her, whom some would say legitimate and well-qualified successor. And if the Reuters post is accurate, it looks like Bondi's move failed and Habba has not been reinstated. But did you hear the person reporting on this story saying Trump is trying to install loyalists? I mean, correct me if I'm wrong, but I don't know of any elected officials in office who doesn't appoint people in positions that support that person. Do you? But anyway, back down to Tennessee, where the comment section is lit with reactions and emotions running hot like we've been sounding the alarms locally for months. And I hate to say this, but the problem is all the blue staters coming in town and bringing their damn politics with them. Nashville has had Democrat mayors for over 100 years, but they generally have been at least moderate. The problem is when the far left gains a foothold. Tennessee keeps importing Californians, so get used to it.
I got hit with LA taxes after I made a couple million, and I had to pay 50% of it, 52% of my money to the IRS.
52?
Yeah. So I was like, okay, screw California, and I panic bought my first house in Vegas, the one in Henderson, and I was going to say that I'm going to live in Vegas.
And that clip there isn't odd, strange, or really far-fetched. It's pretty much par for the course, the norm, and it's honestly just so very common. Bryce Hall, while on the Stories Untold podcast, which is a podcast that focuses on immigrant entrepreneurs, the businesses that they've built, and the challenges they have faced along the way, for which now would be the ideal time to talk about the challenges that Turning Point USA are facing, and yet another blonde and bombshell drop in regard to Erica Kirk.
Right. I don't know. You know, what I will say is there's a good point you made about TPUSA is absolutely reeling, and nobody wants to say anything publicly because everybody, look, man, I've been talking to a handful of people behind the scenes, and I'll give them some respect by not saying their names, but everyone's very pessimistic. And their concern is that, and I said it before, I'll say it again, Turning Point's not going to make it without Charlie.
No.
Behind the scenes, everybody's like, of course. Then on camera, most people are just like, well, and I'm like, well, you know me, dude. If nobody speaks out and calls it out now, the whole thing breaks apart.
Right.
If no one has the strength, just be like, guys, Candace is ripping everything apart for views, and there needs to be, I don't know, man. I don't know how you help Turning Point without Charlie. That's just the reality of it. But if everybody just wants to be quiet and pretend, this is why the right loses all the time. The Washington Generals, Democrats are the heart.
Now, that is an entire different ball of wax there, folks, that we'll have to dive into a little bit later. But Bryce Hall, a TikTok influencer with 23.3 million followers, complains about how he got hit with Los Angeles taxes after he made a couple $1,000,000 and he had to pay 52% of his money to the IRS. 52%. And so he was like, screw California. And yeah, never mind the fact that we live in a country where the government can steal 52% of your money. Meanwhile, states like California are driving liberals and Democrats out just to save their money. And in his case, he chose to move to Las Vegas, Nevada, but others have come to Florida and will go to Tennessee. And here's some food for thought, folks. As of 2025, the states with no income tax on wages or no state income tax at all include Alaska, Florida, Nevada, South Dakota, Texas, and Washington state. Now, Washington has no state income tax on wages, but a 7% capital gains tax on high earners for certain investment income. Wyoming, also no state income tax, as well as New Hampshire, which New Hampshire historically had no income tax on wages, but it did tax interest and dividends through this tax, although this tax is set to be phased out this year. Now, I don't see too many people jumping ship and heading to Alaska to lower their annual tax burden, but I can see them getting pretty creative.
This is the new Bentley Flying Spur, and it's a little bit like an offshore bank account, because if you're a wealthy company director, you can use it to avoid paying too much tax. Note I said avoid, not to evade tax. Tax evasion is illegal. Tax avoidance, perfectly legal. Anyhow, I'm going to tell you exactly.
Now, I could see that happening. But seriously, here's one other way some folks are out there trying to duck and dodge and avoid paying the tax man cometh. And for sure, a blonde bombshell. Megyn Kelly has a text from Letitia James to her accountant saying, "I do not want to take a deduction. It looks suspicious," she says. But Megyn Kelly says that she had been taking the deduction for years until 2024, when she realized Trump was going to be president, implying, as many have already come to the conclusion of, James is cooked and she can't escape the paper trail that she has created with her mortgage fraud.
And selective prosecution. And in response, the DOJ revealed new evidence against her, including a text message marked March 28th, 2024. And it was about how she's taking deductions on, again, what we know is actually an investment property, not a second home in Virginia, the one at issue in this case. And she texted him saying, this is to her accountant. Okay, her accountant. So this is an IRS filing. And she says, "I do not want to take deduction. It looks suspicious, and I need to do everything according to the tax code." So she'd been taking the deduction for years, by the way, for years. The government represents James represented that the Perrone residence, that's the one in Virginia, was an investment property in her income taxes, including taking deductions consistent with investment property, not a secondary residence, because that was more tax advantageous to her. These deductions demonstrate that James never occupied nor intended to occupy the Perrone residence as the mortgage terms required. That's what she promised the mortgage lender she would do, and she didn't. Defendant continued taking the investment property deductions for several years until in 2024, she told her accountant, "I do not want to take deduction. It looks suspicious, and I need to do everything according to the tax code." Now, March of 2024, you've got Donald Trump as the nominee, Joe Biden extremely weak. June of 2024, he would have his meltdown. November of 2024, Trump would be elected. But in March of 2024, the numbers were already spiraling. And there was serious questions about whether Joe Biden could win. And I think she's sensing there is the possibility of a Donald Trump return to office where somebody takes a closer look at my documents. And clearly, she realized that there was a massive inconsistency in what she was doing. One could argue a fraudulent inconsistency in what she was doing. And this will 100% come back to haunt her when her case gets refiled. We'll see if the throwing out gets affirmed on appeal. But even if they affirm the fact that Lindsay Halligan couldn't do this, she's getting re-indicted. And by the way, the case against her has only gotten stronger. So a grand jury, I actually do have a lot of faith, will re-indict her. And fearless or not, she's going to have her hands full.
And no, This case is far from over. It has not been thrown out completely. And yes, we will come back to that. But for states with the lowest income tax rates, high earners consider Tennessee, no state income tax on wages, but a 5% flat tax on interest and dividend income, which is also being phased out, by the way. And South Dakota, Texas, Florida, Nevada, running out of fingers here, and Wyoming. They offer the most favorable conditions for high earners due to the absence of state income tax on wages.
I think we're so close. I think this race is a lot closer than they would have ever expected. Clearly, I'm living rent-free in President Trump's mind, but sir, I'm a 5'4" blonde in the South, just trying to make my community better. But okay, you do you. When we win tomorrow night, it will send a message to Washington that we are fed up and we are tired of all of this, and we deserve representation. They cut up our congressional district into 3, and it's backfiring. And now here we are, and we're going to flip a congressional district in the South. So thank you so much. Very honored to be part of this with you all. I'm so overwhelmed with gratitude. I can't even begin to tell you. So tonight we've got a rally with Representative Alexandria Ocasio-Cortez and Tennessee legend Al Gore.
So cringe. It just makes me sick to my stomach. My stomach is turning watching this, but I do it for you all, to bring you the facts and the truth. But meanwhile, it's comforting to know we are not alone and still fighting strong together. And the comments continue to support MAGA and conservative values, saying, Clay's spot on. Local elections like this one pack a punch. If you're in Tennessee 7, hit the polls and back the candidate who fights for real freedom, not that fringe stuff. President Trump even posted this on X, the real Donald Trump, which is quite a big deal, folks. And I'll tell you why. Because I was listening to and catching up with the latest from Brett Cooper, and she explained it very well, in my opinion.
So while everybody was on their 6th slice of Thanksgiving pie, Trump dropped probably the most Trump tweet of all time, and he actually posted it on X. And I mean, you just know it's serious when it actually goes straight onto X rather than just being a screenshot from Truth Social, is all I'm saying. And it makes sense because this might be one of his greatest and most important tweets yet, in which he calls Tim Walz a retard, he talks about Ilhan Omar marrying her brother, and then says that he is ending all immigration from third world countries. Just take a look. Even as we have progressed technologically, immigration policy has eroded those gains and living conditions for many. I will permanently pause migration from all third world countries to allow the US system to fully recover, terminate all of the millions of Biden illegal admissions, including those signed by Sleepy Joe Biden's auto pen, and remove anyone who is not a net asset to the United States or is incapable of loving our country, end all federal benefits and subsidies to non-citizens of our country, denaturalize migrants who undermine domestic tranquility, and deport any foreign national who is a public charge, security risk, or non-compatible with Western civilization. I mean, that is a mic drop post if I've ever heard one. And after a few hard weeks...
And yes, sure. Brett, she's not a blonde. She isn't a blonde either, but she is for damn sure a bombshell. And I appreciate all her hard work for our country. And so you see this post here, another shared directly from President Trump and uploaded and published straight to X, is just as important from a local level and perspective too. And the president says, I'm asking all American First Patriots in Tennessee's 7th Congressional District to please get out and vote tomorrow for a phenomenal candidate, Matt Van Epps, on Election Day, Tuesday, December 2nd. And well, that's today, folks. Swamp the vote. And he goes on to say, you can win this election for MAGA warrior Matt Van Epps, who has my complete and total endorsement. And he will be a great congressman, and unlike his opponent, he cherishes Christianity and country music.
There are 2 things above all else that bothered me. Number 1, she hates Christianity. Number 2, she hates country music. How the hell can you elect a person like that? So I just want to give my total support, and he's had it right from the beginning. to Matt Van Epps. He's going to be a fantastic congressman. He's going to represent you so well, and we'll keep our agenda going. And I'm going to make a call tonight about 7 or 8 o'clock. I'm doing a tele-rally for him tonight. So if anybody wants to listen, basically I'll be saying the same things I just said. He's fantastic, and go get him and get out tomorrow morning, get out and vote, and let's make it a sweeping victory. The whole world is watching Tennessee right now, and they're watching your district. The whole world. It's a big vote. It's going to show something, and it's got to show that the Republican Party is stronger than it's ever been.
So that was a brief clip featuring Speaker Mike Johnson having put President Trump on speakerphone at the Matt Van Epps rally in Franklin, Tennessee the other day. But this Afton Ben, she has openly stated that she hates them both. And look, I just hope that America, by way of Tennessee, doesn't disappoint like we saw in New York City last month. But ladies and gentlemen, Dana Perino is right. This is coming to a city near you and me, which I honestly find so hard to believe, but it's true.
Get ready for one of the largest Islamic events happening the entire year. The AIM Authentic Ilm Mission Conference, happening right here for the first time ever in Tampa Bay. This is happening in collaboration with the Dean Center in Valrico and Tampa's local da'wah organization, the Sunnah Initiative. This is going to be a 3-day mega event full of lectures, reminders, games, prizes, activities, a vendor bazaar, and much, much more. This year's theme is titled Gratitude as Worship, reading Surah Al-Nahl in an age of forgetfulness. We have keynote speakers such as Sheikh Uthman ibn Farouk.
That got me thinking, if they can change it, I can change it. I was worse.
And Sheikh Kareem Abu Zaid.
Started traveling and not even halfway line. Death came to him.
As well as numerous other speakers and du'at coming from around the country and from around the state of Florida. The event is open to brothers, sisters, youth, and families, and tickets are free of charge. So book your spot for the end of the month, November 28th to November 30th at the Dean Center in Valrico. This is going to be one of the biggest events of the year. Ticket and event information is available at the link below. We'll see you there. Assalamu alaikum.
The event is now confirmed. One of the largest Islamic events of the year being hosted in Tampa Bay. 3 days long, prominent Muslim speakers from all over the country will be there to strengthen Islam in Florida and in America. And so the question now is, Florida, are you going to allow this? And not to get too sidetracked here, but the conversation will shift to Florida real soon as things begin to heat up. And names like DeSantis, Donalds, Fishback become reoccurring.
We do have a responsibility to the Afghans who actually gave their lives and either put their families in harm's way to help us and assist us in our mission. We have a responsibility to do what needs to be done for them.
You said that Byron Donalds is a slave to some of these corporate interests. Could you not have made the same point without using such a derogatory term for a black lawmaker?
Well, look, I think what's derogatory is the fact that Byron Donalds has taken $30 million of corporate money, the vast majority of it, from out of our state to fund his campaign. It's no wonder why he's in the pocket of property developers who want to pave over every little inch of our state for the next strip mall or weed dispensary or liquor store. It's no wonder he supports the H-1B program. I've yet to meet a Floridian, whether it's here in Hillsborough or in Pinellas or my home county of Broward, who's pulled me aside, Holly, and said, would you please support the H-1B program? We want more foreigners to work in our state. That is a position that is forced upon him by his large corporate donors. My message to Byron Donalds is very simple. Give back the $30 million in corporate money. We don't even know really where it came from. We know it's out of state. Give it back so you can actually stand up for American workers. That's the right thing to do.
You ready? Let's go. I'm ready. Let's do it.
All right.
Byron, I didn't think Kissimmee was your district.
Listen, when you're running for governor, everywhere is your district. I'm trying to figure out what it is you guys are actually doing.
Nazi.
You do realize that Nazis don't like black people, right? What do you want us to agree on?
Congress, because I was just in D.C. on Monday for Trans Visibility, and I would like you, as a member of Congress, to rise up and support LGBTQ plus youth and stop this insane attack on our children who know who they are. Because you're a fascist. You're a trace.
So, because I do not believe in the mutilation of children, I'm a fascist now? And I asked you a question. I asked you a question, and you said you don't agree with me.
My children
I asked you a question. You call me a fascist, you call me a race traitor, and you want me to agree with you? What are you talking about, ma'am?
Are you against electric vehicles? I am against the Republican Party of Florida for having control of the governor's mansion for 25 years.
What policy in Florida the last 25 years that you don't agree with?
All right, what I believe you should do right now is study the law.
But sir, I spent 4 years in the legislature.
And that was
I wrote some of the laws.
Right, I know you wrote some of the laws.
So I'm asking you, which one?
All right. They're too many to name right now.
Last question. Seriously, last question.
Give me last question.
New York or Florida? Which state is governed better, New York or Florida?
It's clearly New York. Why don't you live in New York? Why don't you live in New York?
All I'm gonna say is
because I live in Florida.
People choose Florida. They've been coming here more than going the other way. When you vote with your feet, it matters.
Well, I think Ron DeSantis is the greatest governor in Florida history. He's the greatest governor in America. He kept Fauci and Deborah Birx and her crazy scarves at the gates. He protected us from DEI and radical transgenderism. I got to tell you, I'm in this race to earn as many Florida votes as I can, but it would be the honor of a lifetime to have the vote of the governor and the first lady, and I'm working to earn that vote just as anybody else.
WJXC News Channel 4 here in Jacksonville. I just have 4 questions. One, Florida is home to hundreds of thousands of undocumented immigrants who are working in areas.
Well, you know, just to be, so the federal government has made clear that the statutory term, it's not they're illegal aliens. That's the statutory term, and that's what it is. And I think it's to try to water down. I mean, like, undocumented, it's like if I get in my car and I forget my wallet, okay, I don't have my document on me, like my driver's license, but I mean, I still have a right to drive. I just made a mistake. This is intentional to come in illegally. And it's not just a question of missing a document. It's a question of, you violated the law that were very clear, and knowingly, and with the help of the cartels in many cases.
So I'll rephrase that. So Florida is home to hundreds of thousands of illegal immigrants who are illegal aliens, if you want to call it, who are working in areas of agriculture, farming, construction, hospitality. I'm just wondering, once we start to see, the significant roundups of these people, is there a plan in place to help those industries, to prevent those industries from experiencing true hardship, financial hardship?
So here's what I'd say. They made the same arguments on 23 when we did our immigration Cayenne Road. We did E-Verify. When any of those industries, when they hire new people, they've got to verify their immigration status. Otherwise, they can't work. And people said, you are not going to be able to.
All I'm gonna say is
because I live in Florida.
People choose Florida. They've been coming here more than going the other way. When you vote with your feet, it matters.
I'm going to come to your district and register a lot of poor people. I'm going to register them. I'm going to get the felons that have had their voting rights taken away that don't even know they can vote still now. I worked on felons' voting rights in Florida 7 years ago.
You ready?
I'm going to come to your district and I'm going to register so many people. I have nothing but time.
Do you remember the amendment about restoration of voting rights? You ready? I endorsed it. I supported it.
Stay locked in, folks. So much more to come, like expanding on the sentiment from all of you. As this comment speaks volumes, and Dan says, Florida better wake the hell up, because while everyone's busy arguing over memes and football games, an entire 3-day ideological takeover convention just waltzed right into Tampa like it owns the joint. These aren't bake sales or charity drives. These are power consolidation events, the kind where community building is politicians speak for, we're planting flags and flexing numbers. And the fact it's happening in the free state of Florida, of all places, is wild. Florida's been the last line of sanity, freedom, and no bullshit governance, and now they're testing the fence to see if anyone pushes back. And you don't stop lawful events, but you damn sure stay vigilant, loud, politically active, and make it clear Florida isn't rolling over for ideological colonization. The Sunshine State better act like the fortress it claims to be. And yes, don't get me wrong, folks, but hear me out. I think Byron Donalds is no doubt a very smart, intelligent, eloquent, well-spoken, highly educated politician with loads of experience in a variety of different areas that can be great for America and Florida. I just hope he quits wasting his time arguing with retards on the street corners and recording podcasts with Benny Johnson just to get him some insanely viral views. But we'll have to come back to that in a future video and have a chat and a conversation about it all and his opponents and really what's best for Florida. And I have another one of your comments here that I would like to share that says, liberalism is not a dumpster fire, as a dumpster fire is contained, but instead, liberalism is a selfish, insane asylum without walls. And this is so true. But it also kind of makes me laugh because I remember George AA having said something similar last week or the week before or prior, and it was along the lines of a certain group of people out there and about whatever group or classification they would have fallen into for categorization. But he then said, he goes, there's nothing wrong with being like that, but a liberal, a Democrat, ew, yuck.
The Democrat crowd is cheering her on. Fair enough. Fair enough. Never in a million years did I think I'd see that. Ladies and gentlemen, our friendly neighborhood Fang Fang Banger is running for governor of California. Eric Swalwell, my best friend. Look at us together, man. I'm so happy to be there. So Congressman Swallow is now on the campaign trail, and he had a rally. And we're going to have more people like this video in the first 5 minutes of me uploading it than he had at his rally. It's a ghost town, and the crowd is very predictable. It's like 90% old liberal women. Nothing wrong with being old, but liberal? Ugh. Anyways, the Chinese spy lover gave the crowd the mic, and when I say fireworks, I mean fireworks commenced.
First, man, you asked the most emotionally poignant question. I want to start with you.
Anyway, I just thought that was so true and so funny at the same time and so accurate. I mean, have you ever tried to talk to or speak to or carry on a conversation with a Democrat? Forget debate and discussion, but just trying to talk to a hardcore far left progressive, vote blue no matter who, libtard. Well, it's definitely an exercise in patience, but I would advise against it if you already have a history of high blood pressure. And I can assure you, don't waste your time, effort, energy, or breath. The juice is certainly not worth the squeeze. However, speaking of insane and viral, check this one out, and the latest from Candace Owens. And Cinema Shogun says Candace Owens fans are mighty quiet tonight after today's disappointment of a show, calling out how they're in absolute shambles right now, doing mental gymnastics, trying to find excuses for why Candace didn't take her assassination threats seriously enough to properly report them. But he says, I'll give them credit, and points out that they bent over backwards all week to defend her, despite her claims making 0 sense. And this is how she repaid them, by making them look almost as foolish as her. And turns out they were the only ones taking any of this seriously, almost like the joke was on them the entire time. Watch.
But the FBI left me on red. And I will say I didn't go through an official channel and send an email, and I should do that. But I did send a text message to somebody very high up who received the text message. No response.
All right, guys, look, real talk for a second, okay? And I'm just going to keep it real and be honest with you like I always do. And just tell you how I actually find this whole thing to be pretty fascinating. And I'll be honest, I haven't really kept up with Candace Owens in a long time. I was never subscribed, she was never really my cup of tea, right? It's not even It's not even news half the time. It's really just like high drama gossip that somehow always ends up circling back to her. And this latest thing with the dead man switch and all that stuff, I mean, it's a little bit much for me. It's just a little bit much for me, folks. Okay. So it feels like reality TV more than commentary at this point, for which we all know reality TV is anything but. It's just like what Elon said in his post here, and how we go down the rabbit hole. Many of you will understand and agree with them, replacing terms like illegal alien with undocumented immigrant, which is done, and it's being done deliberately to obfuscate or try and obscure or make it unclear or unintelligible the fact that a crime has been committed.
Admitted to this country by the Biden administration, that's 100% correct, 2021. But he was granted asylum by the Trump administration in April. So, but again, he was granted asylum in April. So President Trump had already been in office for several months. You had been in office. Are you saying there was no vetting done by the Trump administration? You were simply relying on what had been done under the Biden administration? You did no vetting before granting him asylum?
There's a lot going on in that soundbite, too. Not only is Jonathan Karl of ABC Fake News completely ignoring how the Biden regime did no vetting on the Afghan foreign national that the Biden regime brought into the country, he then had the gall to ask why the Trump team didn't do any vetting and just accepted the Biden regime's work as factual. It's breathtaking. In an effort to hold Democrats blameless, ABC Fake News is actually suggesting that Team Trump should assume that everything that Joe Biden and his regime did was done by unqualified leftist incompetence, and that it's up to grown-ups in the America First coalition to do double check everything Democrats did for 4 years. But what if Trump did that? What if Trump issued a blanket order that all policies, all asylum cases had to start over from scratch because America couldn't rely on the amateur hour crew in the Biden regime to have had the brains God gave a soda biscuit? Wouldn't Jonathan Karl and ABC Fake News, the very people who covered up Joe Biden's mental decline and lies, be among the first to push back on Trump if he did that?
And so, ladies and gentlemen, we all know the strategy and the tactic of the left is to distract and disinform and disarm so that their virus can continue to spread further and wider. Contagion, folks. Now, posting anonymously, saying captions like, how did we end up with two podcasters in charge of the FBI?
This is Karate Man. Double leg, the jump kick, the side kick, the roundhouse, the tie kick, body.
And look, I'm assuming they mean Bongino and Cash Patel, but I honestly wouldn't have pegged Cash as being a podcaster prior to, but that's just me. And so this morning, I was showing my wife this video, and it's from a fellow YouTuber, a video I have saved to complete and finish on my watch list titled 14 Things to Not Post on Social Media in 2026 If You Want to Grow. I say this because I love you, in parentheses, of course. But the timing could not have been more perfect, almost like the algorithm knew what was coming. And I think this is absolutely perfect timing and almost like divine intervention, as I feel podcasters like Candace Owens and others may have fallen into the trap or don't quite realize that these faux pas and trends that they've literally gone out of style already. But the chapters and timestamps of the video include, obviously, the intro and then ChatGPT content. And she talks about audio-only podcasts versus YouTube podcasts, and then podcasts, YouTube titles, and thumbnails. Next is viral and views-only content, Instagram stories that don't do anything, and content for pity. Yeah. The aesthetic-only content, break announcements, and the why hook. Tips and hacks content 3 ways, ... Moving on to good old fashioned hustle, fear mongering energy, day in my life vlogs. And lastly, as she puts it, after hours and how to grow on Instagram as a YouTuber. Now, folks, hear me out. And don't get me wrong. I'm not sitting here saying Candace is guilty of every single one of these, but a lot of the big dramatic podcasters right now are leaning hard into exactly the stuff this young lady is saying is already played out and actually hurts your growth long term. And do you want to know the craziest part? It's knowing what not to do is something and sometimes even more valuable than knowing what to do. But please listen closely when I say this. I'm no guru. I'm not out here selling courses, but I've been doing this shit for a long time. I've been doing it long enough to feel the shift in the algorithm and the audience's vibe every single day. And a lot of these old tactics are just straight up poison in 2025 and going into 2026. And here's a prime example of someone who took the hustle, fear mongering, and pity content route to the absolute extreme. So let me ask, do you guys remember Lily Gaddis, the streamer who went mega viral for casually dropping the hard R N-word on stream like it was nothing? Yeah, that one. Well, fast forward a bit, and now she's crying on camera because YouTube fully demonetized her channel, her sole source of income. And her exact words were, and I quote, "I tried my best, but they just want to keep her real down."
I have officially been demonetized on YouTube, which was my sole form of income. Aside from a few tiny little outlets here and there, YouTube was my main moneymaker. And I'm kind of stupid. I don't have a 5-year plan. I don't plan ahead. I live in the moment. I put it all out there. I'm an open book. I live with my heart on my sleeve. You know, if I say something, I mean it. I couldn't censor myself. I refused to censor myself. It's just impossible. I really tried. I really tried my best. Believe it or not, what you saw on YouTube was the vanilla me. It was like the vanilla of the vanilla. And I tried my best, but they want to keep a real down, okay? And that's what they're doing.
Man, oh man. If only she had the brains God gave a soda biscuit, right? And as far as a blonde goes, I mean, yeah, she checks that box, but bombshell? Hardly. Not quite as much as her brutal news and awakening. Rude at that. But I'm not even going to bother to comment on the irony of that statement. However, that right there, folks, that's the cocktail of hustle, fear-mongering, victimhood content, and chasing viral outrage at all costs that this video I have saved on my watch list is literally warning against. And now the platform pulled the rug. What a shocker. Sorry, not sorry. I just don't have and I can't find a care to give. Maybe she will consider converting to Islam and becoming a Muslim to gain attention and virality and then make some money somehow.
White community members to respond on whether they love that person or not. And so I think it is beyond time. It's beyond time to ask Muslims to condemn terrorists. We are no longer going to allow the dignification of such ridiculous statement.
And I stand corrected. And I beg my pardon, because do y'all remember earlier when I said that Afton Ben's circle jerk sesh was so cringe and how it just made me sick to my stomach? And my stomach was actually turning watching it. But I do it for you guys. I do it for all of you to bring you the facts and the truth. Well, I would say that Ilhan Omar is far worse. And this comment I read from Sam Poole here is absolutely right, where he said that dumbing down of U.S. has arrived is true. It arrived when she and her brother, husband, and her family and the other Somalians arrived, and that country is lower than a third world country. They marry their siblings, they're inbred, and it's incest. And talk about perversion. Omar is proud of it. Just makes you want to throw up. However, take it all in with a grain of salt. It helps to cut some of the left's bitter taste that they leave in your mouth And remember, this is just more of the liberal, leftist, Democrat tricks and games they play to incite and bait using race. Just like we saw on Friday, and in this clip here, where maybe you all can help me out figuring out what the hell they're actually saying, what they're yelling and screaming and chanting at this Target retail store. I'm not sure. Is it we ain't buying it, or they're saying we ain't violent? I don't know. But that was a Democrat and self-proclaimed influencer and pastor Jamal Bryant, and as per reports across the internet, was seen disturbing the peace in the middle of a shopping center surrounded by fellow protesters screaming Target boycott chants because they believe Target is racist for removing DEI. Oh, and speaking of Target and Black Friday shopping, sales, and those supposed blackouts, make sure you go check out ST Talks' video that she published yesterday. It's extremely eye-opening. But yet again, make it make sense, because I just can't. And I don't even know who's worse or worse off, him and them or Lily Gaddis, who I would be willing to bet is along the same lines as another podcaster out there, Bobby Altoff, who's obsessed with black guys and getting dick down after divorcing her husband and walking out on her kids. But again, and yes, I know, guys, not a blonde and definitely not a bombshell. However, she too has been demonetized and canceled. But look, I'm not celebrating anyone losing their bag. I genuinely believe in free speech and people being able to say wild stuff and deal with the consequences. But if your entire strategy is built on outrage clicks, pity parties, and fear mongering about the system keeping you down, well, then 2026 is going to be a rude awakening for a lot of creators or influencers. Which brings me to our final blonde bombshell. And I had to go and ask Grok, who is this woman that's been popping up in my feed and gaining a lot of attention online and on social media recently? Now, some of y'all might know this one already. At the real Cindy Alexis 2.0, handle at AM Patriot 2016. And if so, then that makes me late to the party.
Jasmine Crockett came out on the weekend shows and announced that we have to stop considering deporting criminal illegal migrants, and we should start deporting white supremacists. Take a listen to her.
Late to the game, but if not, well, then let me tell you that she's apparently this no BS conservative wife, mom, grandma, and self-proclaimed amateur political analyst with the chef emoji thrown in because, yeah, why not? She's rocking a blue check and it's got about 1,700 followers on X that are growing like wildfire in a dry field. And so from what I dug into, meet Cindy Alexis. And Cindy Alexis is labeled as a conservative political commentator active primarily on TikTok and X, known for blunt, unfiltered criticism of Democratic politicians and progressive policies. Her content focuses on America First priorities, strict border enforcement, opposition to illegal immigration, criticism of welfare programs accessed by non-citizens, and skepticism toward mainstream media narratives. Recent examples include sharp condemnation of Representative Jasmine Crockett's proposal to prioritize deportation of certain citizens over criminal non-citizens, highlighting Senator Elizabeth Warren's apparent inconsistency on tax legislation she previously supported, pointing out the taxpayer costs associated with emergency room deliveries by undocumented mothers, followed by the children's eligibility for public benefits. defending the Trump administration's immigration enforcement actions as fulfillment of campaign promises, criticizing Democratic silence on inflation during the Biden administration, while complaining about minor price increases under Trump. And this post of hers here that I caught on X did have me scratching my head a little bit at first.
President Donald Trump announcing he is going to terminate all of Joe Biden's auto pens. This is spectacular, and I'm going to tell you why. The media is all over this shit already. They're like, he can't do that, right? But what if he does? Well, the Democrats have two choices. They can either allow him to do it and admit that Joe Biden was not of his right mind and capable of running the country, or they can sue him to say, you can't do that. And of course, President Trump is anticipating them to sue him. But here's what happens when they do. Donald Trump and the DOJ now become privy to discovery, testimony, internal logs, medical records, staff communications, auto pen records, all of it under oath. Discovery. It's epic. It's a honey trap. So witnesses are going to be asked, who was running the White House? Were presidential duties done outside of the scope of the actual president of the United States? And they're forced to answer because otherwise it's fraud, it's perjury. And if the courts rule that the auto pen was invalid based on the testimony, then all executive orders are nullified, all military direction nullified, agency actions, legislative signature. It would basically erase Joe Biden's entire presidency. And this would be the biggest scandal in our lifetimes. This is an absolute honey trap. It is a win-win situation. And this is epic.
However, after listening more carefully and rereading the original caption of the post that said, Patriot explains why President Trump terminating all Joe Biden's auto pen actions is such a honey trap. And she says either Democrats let him do it and admit Biden was clueless, or they sue Trump and everything Biden did gets exposed in discovery. Would be epic. And maybe I just, at the time, I hadn't had enough coffee or wasn't quite fully awake yet. But they're right. And so is she. And it's actually kind of funny because it's just like how if Trump were to identify as a female, well, then it would force the hand of the Democrats. And that is a honey trap scenario too. And again, so the left would have to accept him as the first woman president or admit how ridiculous their gender identity ideology really is. And I'm not about that trans life bullshit, okay? But I do think it would be hilarious, funny as hell just to see Trump do it and watch them all squirm. Their heads would explode and the media would melt down before having to pull the plug, thus ruining their psyop and terminating the simulation the sheep are stuck and trapped in. But back to Cindy Alexis, in whom politically she is a staunch Republican and Trump supporter from what I gather. She has promoted the recent auto pen story regarding Biden-era documents as evidence of serious impropriety and regularly calls out perceived fraud or judicial overreach in cases involving Medicaid and election integrity. And her personal background reveals she presents herself as a wife, a mother, and a grandmother with traditional family values. Her profile and commentary suggests Midwestern roots, likely native or originally from Michigan or Ohio, reflecting working class and Rust Belt perspectives. Her reception online seems well and fitting from our side. Within conservative and MAGA circles, she's well regarded for her direct style and rapid fire video responses. Her posts routinely receive strong engagement, dozens to hundreds of likes and reposts from accounts in the patriot and conservative ecosystem and circle. She has virtually no mainstream media coverage, positive or negative, which keeps her a little bit under the radar, the broader radar, while allowing her to maintain an unfiltered voice. Her language is often profane and confrontational, making her vulnerable to be demonetized and demonetization or even shadow banning, but she doesn't appear to rely on grievance-based or victimhood content. And as far as why I'm just now seeing her for the first time, well, her current traction and her increased visibility really has just been part of a significantly sharp rise since earlier this year in 2025, coinciding with the post-election political realignment, Republican control of government, and ongoing debates over deportations, government spending, and cultural issues. Her short, high-energy video clips perform well in TikTok's algorithm, driving organic growth. And as of late 2025, she remains an independent commentator without major podcast appearances or formal media deals, but her consistent output positions her as an emerging grassroots voice on the right heading into the 2026 midterms. And so, ladies and gentlemen, that's all right in my book. And besides the length of our videos and orientation and formats being polar opposites, we are much alike. And in summary, I would say Cindy Alexis offers straightforward, no-nonsense conservative commentary aimed at an audience frustrated with establishment politics and open borders. She's not a polished influencer, nor am I, and we're not creating highly produced videos from within a standard set and purpose-built studio and make no effort to appeal across the aisle. Her appeal is almost entirely to the already convinced populist right. But I trust she, as well as I hope myself, will have an impact in midterms and 2028 to stop the spread of the woke mind virus, keep America on track, and moving forward towards the right direction, an America First agenda.
What keeps you up at night, and what could Trump, how could he do better at addressing those concerns you have?
Well, what keeps me up at night? Losing elections. I mean, honestly, like the biggest danger to momentum is losing the next election. If they win, they will impeach the president again. If they win big and somehow get control of the Senate, I think Trump is right about this. They will eliminate the filibuster. If they were to win in 26 and 28, they will pack the courts. They will make D.C. and Puerto Rico states. They will do a lot of terrible things in a very, very short period of time. So what keeps me up at night is our political future. And I think we do have a lot of good things going right now, but it can all come to a screeching halt and go the exact opposite direction in the blink of an eye. So I worry about that. I hope President Trump spends 2026 doing what he does best, which is selling. We've done a lot of great things. He's put a lot of balls in the air, and a lot of them have gone through the hoop. But now it's time to sell. And it's time to sell domestically. I think he's been one of the greatest foreign policy presidents we've had in recent memory. That doesn't typically move the needle domestically. And so I think it's time to sell on the domestic front. I do think the Big Beautiful Bill was great. I think the welfare reform was great. Making tax cuts permanent was great. Middle class tax cuts for working class people was great. Solving the immigration crisis was great. But what we talk mostly about with him right now is foreign policy. And look, I'm a motivated guy when it comes to foreign policy, but most voters are motivated by domestic issues. So I want them to turn him back into the middle of this country and go out and remind people why we kicked their asses to the curb last year and put him back in. And I know that he can do it.
And so, my friends, as we stand here on the cusp of the pivotal Tennessee 7 special election happening right now as we speak, let's draw some hard-won wisdom from voices like Scott Jennings, also a fellow podcaster. And yeah, okay. We can put him in the category too of blonde bombshell. No homo. And pay close attention and please share the strong words delivered from the battle-tested Republican strategist who just laid it all bare at the Manhattan Institute in that last clip you guys just saw and or heard. But folks, ladies and gentlemen, he's not mincing words. Trust and believe that if Democrats claw their way back to power in 26 or 28, And we're talking impeachment rounds, 2 or 3 for President Trump, torching the Senate filibuster to ram through their radical wish list, stacking the courts with lifetime activists, and fast-tracking statehood for D.C. and Puerto Rico to lock in a permanent leftist supermajority just for starters. It's not hyperbole. It's the playbook we've seen glimpses of before, from the 2020 chaos to January 6th's fallout, and it chills the blood because it strikes at the heart of the fair fight our founders envisioned. Jennings gets it. And I know you all get it too. And listen, he's urging Trump to double down on the wins that matter. Real welfare reform that lifts families up instead of trapping them. Permanent tax cuts that put money back in hardworking folks' pockets, and a laser focus on reconnecting with that great American middle class who's tired of being squeezed by open borders and endless spending sprees. It's a compassionate call to arms, one that echoes the anxiety rippling through every patriot in the GOP. Our majorities are, in fact, razor thin. The midterms look like a storm cloud ahead, and we can't afford to blink. But it's not all doom and gloom, folks. None of that fear-mongering crap, okay? No, but instead, listen up, because here's the warmth in his warning. It's born of love for this country, a fierce determination to shield her from the woke mind virus that's already eroded so much of our shared values, our families, our future. And so let's be real clear-eyed about tomorrow's spin. Even if Republicans hold the line here in Tennessee 7, and I pray that we do, sweeping Matt Van Epps across the finish line with the mandate he deserves, the Democrats will twist it like a pretzel. I would expect headlines that read, "You see, MAGA's crumbling. It was razor close in a safe red seat," is what they'll crow, ignoring it's an open race with Trump off the ballot, just like they did in 24. And just like Ricky Bobby and Reese Bobby said, if you ain't first, you're last. Winning's winning. But win or lose for them, they'll weave a web of momentum narratives, doom loops of demoralization designed to sap our fire, fracture our resolve, and tee up their real shots down the road. It's a tired tactic, but it works if we let it. And so we won't. Don't. See it for what it is. Nothing but pure desperation from a party chasing socialist fever dreams, from AOC's squad to the fringes, while we build on truth and grit. That's why voices like Cindy Alexis, and yes, like yours and mine, matter so profoundly right now. And yes, if you like my videos, subscribe now, because it really does help out a lot. Ladies and gentlemen, I mean it when I say we are the unfiltered heartbeat of this movement. Raw, real, rooted in Rust Belt resilience and family first faith. We're not chasing likes or deals. We're calling out the fraud, the overreach, the cultural erosion with the kind of no BS fire that cuts through the noise. Whether it's in high octane clips or in calm and smooth paced, silky voice, steady wisdom, and conversation, we're reminding every frustrated soul from Michigan Mills to Ohio heartlands that America First isn't a slogan, it's a lifeline. It is our mission statement if we were a business or a company or a corporation. It's the shield against the illusion of their victory, the spark that turns narrow holds into landslides come 26 and beyond. So here's my hand extended to you with all the compassion of a brother in this fight. Stay vigilant, stay vocal, stay unbreakable. Hug your husband and or wife. Chase your kids or nieces and nephews around the yard. Kiss your grandkids goodnight, and then get back in the arena and fight. Together, with Trump leading the charge on domestic triumphs that heal our divides, we'll not just stop the slide, we will surge forward and drain that swamp. Do it for our families, do it for our borders, do it for the red, the white, and the blue soul of this nation. do it for our future. Thank you all again for spending the time here with me. And just remember, we've got this because we choose it every damn day. Let's win today, tomorrow, and keep winning for keeps. Take care, and I hope to see you all right back here again real soon. God bless you all, and God bless the United States of America.